One thing that I really love about jazz is that it has made me a stronger player. As someone who went to jazz school and has also played many gigs that are outside of the jazz style, I have seen how elements within jazz have facilitated me actually playing other styles better. Jazz has been explained as, a style that should have swing. It should have predominantly improvisation over prepared material. Some say the feeling in jazz is what's important, but there's this particular definition that says that jazz is a treatment. I think I lean more toward this definition because this definition essentially focuses on the fact that jazz is a harmonic system, and that when you treat it in that way, it can be applied within any style. I think this is why jazz has such a long lifespan. It is even relevant to this day. So for example, shell voicings. In jazz, we learn that when you have a chord in your left hand, let's say you're doing improvisation, you can pretty much just do root and third in the left hand. So I'm going to do C minor. That would be root, C. The third would be E flat. Or you can do root and 7, which is C and B flat. I could take a jazz tune, right, and play shell voicings, autumn leaves, but equally, I could take a more modern context, neo-soul-esque kind of style. Sometimes I like messing around and creating, fun chord progression. So something like D7 to E flat major, D7, then E minor, D7, E flat major, right? That's just a fun progression that I like to mess around with. So I could use these shell voicings even if I was improvising within this context. So for the D7, I will do root and 3, which will be D and F sharp, or I can do root and 7. For the E flat major, I can do E flat and G, or E flat and D, which is the 7. And then when I get to E minor 7, I would do E and G, or E and D. Or you could actually do a combination of all three. In jazz, we also learn what we call rootless left-hand voicings. These voicings are, as the title suggests, no root, and as a result of that, the root gets substituted by tensions like the 9th and the 13th. In jazz, we learn that when you do a rootless left-hand voicing, you build it either on the 3rd, or you can build it on the 7th of the chord. Going back again to Autumn Leaves, which is a jazz tune. Autumn Leaves is C minor 7 to F7, B flat major 7 to E flat major 7, A half diminished to D7, then G minor. And if I were to do rootless left-hand voicings, I might want to build my C minor 7 from the 3rd. I'll do 3, 5, 7, and 9. And then when I go to F7, which is the 5 chord, the only thing I move is the flat 7 of C minor to what would be the 3rd of F7, which gives me a F13 chord. So everything I build off of the 3rd or off of the 7. B flat major would look like this. E flat major could look like this. This is the same chord built off of the 7. Otherwise, off of the 3rd, it would look like A half diminished built off of the flat 7. D7 built off of the 3rd. G minor built off of flat 7. So I'll play the same tune, and the nice thing about Rootless left hand voicings, they actually facilitate you playing in a higher register. So you could do. Now, similarly, in my modern-esque progression that I was fooling around with, I could do rootless left-hand voicing. So I will do D7 like that, and I'll do the E flat minor like that. And then for the E minor, I could do, right, these are all rootless. So instead of I'll have the rootless left-hand voicings. You know what I mean? Other interesting voicings that you learn in jazz that I have then also applied in other styles are what I would call the drop 2-9 voicing. So if I have G minor, for instance, that would be root 7, 3, 5, and 9, a very common voicing. When sunny gets blue, her eyes get gray and cloudy. You'd kind of use that voicing, you know, when you have the 9 on top or speak low. So you'd use that in that instance, you know. Similarly, the queen of neo soul, Erykah Badu, in her tunes, this kind of voicing works really well, and I hear her pianist do it a lot. So like something like, oh my, 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 I'm feeling high, high. My money's gone, I'm all alone. So they use these kind of drop 2-9 style voicings or cluster voicings, which I'll get into just now. That brings me to the next one, the cluster voicing, which basically takes the drop 2-9 voicing, and instead of putting the 9 on top, you put the 9 within the voicing, like this. So it could be the same thing. Whoa, my, 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 I'm feeling high. And I think the most important thing that jazz teaches you is understanding harmony on a broad level, rather than just playing a song, as in following the chord as it goes. You learn about the tone center in its entirety. So if I was in the key of C major, in jazz we learn that each degree of the scale has a chord. And I mean, I have tons of videos about that, so I don't want to dwell on that. But something that I don't hear people speaking of is actually playing harmonic minor's scale chords. So if I had G harmonic minor, I could do the same, where I could play G harmonic minor as chords, and it comes up with interesting chords. So chord 1, for example, is minor major. Chord 2 is half diminished. Chord 3 is major sharp 5. Chord 4 is minor 7. Chord 5 is dominant. 6 is major. 7 is fully diminished. Right? And these chords within the scale allow you to, rather than just picking everything from the major scale, you can substitute things from harmonic minor. And I guess You could take other scales and play them as chords. And harmonic minor, for me, helped me understand chords within lead sheets that I didn't understand. The elements that I talk about in this video are really useful for jazz players as well as non-jazz players. And if you are a jazz player, I'm actually really curious. Let me know in the comments, did the things that you learn in jazz help you play other styles? Because I honestly feel like had I not had the foundation that I had with jazz music, I don't know what kind of an approach I would have had, especially because if you followed some of my other videos, especially the one that's entitled I Wish I Learned This at Jazz School, you'll know that I was classically trained. Prior to going to jazz school, I was classically trained, and so I had no understanding of harmony at all. Everything that I know about harmony, I learned through jazz school, transcribing, and it really set me with a strong foundation to be able to understand how to play other styles, because a lot of styles are actually informed by jazz in a way. The things that are taught in jazz are actually universal, and that was kind of what I was thinking about when I was making this video. I went ahead and created this resource over here called Universal Jazz Concepts. Pretty much it's all the exercises in all 12 keys with a little bit of write-up as well as a few clips, you know, of extra information, what you should think about when you are practicing them. So it's a really practical resource. I like to create resources that are practical. Past, I would say 2 months, I've noticed that there have been a lot more people watching my videos, and you won't know if you've joined recently that I actually only started creating resources, I would say, for about 2-3 months. And the reason I actually started doing it is because I started to see people leaving comments saying, you know, do you have a PDF? Is there a course coming? And so I started to create these resources, right? And I really hope they help. But the thing is the platform that I've been using this far does not allow for any kind of feedback or review. And I'm actually considering migrating my resources to a platform that is going to allow you to leave reviews and whatnot. But either way, this brings me to what I've been thinking about. I've actually been really thinking about the fact that I would love to communicate with my audience more, meaning would you like Q&A live sessions? Do you have questions? Most of the resources that I put out are all 12 key exercises, and I have 1 or 2 where it's an actual booklet, especially the one called I Wish I Learned This at Jazz School. This was actually a very special project of mine that I actually would love to turn into a physical book, because yeah, I really wish I learned the stuff in there at jazz school. And I do go into detail, you know, with that one. It's a really great practical follow along type of booklet, as well as the Oscar Peterson booklet of 3 Oscar Peterson jazz gospel licks. But most of them are all 12 keys digital packs, right? Like this resource for this video, which is Universal Jazz Concepts. If you want to get that, please check it out in the description. Along with the Universal Jazz Concepts resource, I do have short form videos that sort of explicate these exercises that I talked about in this video in a little bit more detail. But the point of me making this video is to just bring across the fact that jazz is not stuck, you know, in the so-called bop period where you have swing, hard bop, bebop, modal jazz, you know, between like 1930s to 1960s and whatever. But it is actually a treatment, and I really love this definition because, and I think it was Barry Harris who had said that jazz is essentially an extension of classical music. And you know, over the years, jazz has really developed a really in-depth and intricate harmonic approach that when you learn it, whether you are someone who is intending to go out and play jazz standards or not, it can be applicable to you in your situation when used in the right context.